Ken Copeland, he's with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Region 6. He's coordinates alcohol, motorcycle, youth, commercial vehicle programs in all the Region 6 states, which includes Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Ken has logged over, I think that needs updated, right?
It's a long time.
100,000 crash-free miles. Welcome, Ken.
I've been riding since '74, and I didn't log the miles, so I don't have a clue. How many of y'all know exactly how many miles you've ridden? A bunch of you just say a whole bunch, right? That's kind of the way I am. When it came to picking the guy that does the motorcycle program, looked around and said, well, you ride, you're it. Okay, I can handle that. I do love it. I will tell you guys that over the 6 states that we're in, you should be proud of the state of Texas, because Texas is putting a lot of money in motorcycle safety in the state. I can go to several other states in our region, and their budget is really almost nothing. So they are working very hard to try to make our roadways safer for us guys that ride motorcyclists, and y'all should be proud of that. And part of that is this organization. You know, it's incredible. He said 7 years. I'd kind of lost track of that too. I think I've missed one of them, which was last year. I guess that's why you said I've been kind of out of the loop, because I missed one. I thought I was. That was the only one. I think that. And I was doing cash. I missed 2. Well, cash. I was doing cash for clunkers. Special detail. Sorry about that. Well, what they wanted me to do is, you know, they kind of wanted me to give you a little update about what's going on with NHTSA and some of the research that's happening up at the Washington level. I can tell you, working in the regional office in Fort Worth, I'm not involved with this stuff until it's pushed out and the studies are finished, and they take it and send the publications out and try to take the best stuff that works and try to coordinate that and implement that into programs around the country. So I can tell you, if you see something up here that piques your interest, don't think I'm going to be able to answer all your questions, because a lot of them the studies are coming out sometime this summer, or some of them as far as 2016. But I called up our motorcycle section up there and said, you know, give me the short list. Well, actually, it's a fairly long list of those things that they're working on up there to address motorcycle safety over the next few years. This is one of them that's a longitudinal, I think they put that long word in there just for me, study to improve crash avoidance skills. And they're working with the Motorcycle Safety Foundation just to try to figure out ways to enhance rider crash avoidance. That study should actually be out sometime this year in 2012, see what they come up with then. One of the other things is that they've worked with the state of Georgia. They're doing motorcycle safety checkpoints. I don't know if y'all had heard about those. I know most of you had heard about the ones in what state? New York. New York. Okay. Yeah, that was the one that hit big up there. There was actually a lawsuit brought against the state of New York for doing those checkpoints, and the courts actually ruled that it was okay. But they are continuing those type of research activities to see how it affects with the state of Georgia, and I think that's going to go on through 2012. They are also working with the International Association of Directors of Law Enforcement. They put together a training program for officers to come and to talk about motorcycle safety and working with motorcycles and how those work into their everyday jobs. I know they had one of these courses. The only one I know that actually occurred in our region was down in South Louisiana. I don't guess anybody here got to, huh? John got to go to it? John, that you may can share with kind of what kind of information. I didn't get to go. I really wish I could have had an opportunity to see what type of information was put into it and what was taught to the law enforcement. But if you're interested in that, you may have to talk to John about that, because I just didn't have an opportunity to see that or the curriculum. They're also working on some model standards for entry-level rider training. This is basically trying to make sure that everybody across the country, and like I said, they're just model standards. Each state will be responsible for adopting their own standards, but this just puts out some general guidelines on what they might be. And I guess John got to see those at the 2011 meeting too, once again. John, you know more about that. Why aren't you doing this presentation? You probably got to see more of this stuff than I have. Okay. You're going to talk about all this, though, right? Another thing that they're working on is working with the state of Massachusetts to do a demonstration project to try to figure out strategies designed to increase proper motorcycle operator licensing. A lot of the state's motorcycle operators are riding improperly because they're not licensed in their state to operate the motor vehicle. I think in the state of Texas, correct me if I'm wrong, about 30% is the last number that I saw are not properly licensed. And so they're working with Massachusetts on ways to improve that. This one is out just right now. It's a project they're asking states to send in proposals about high visibility enforcement models to increase alcohol impaired motorcycle riding. That'll be a kind of a spinoff of the Georgia project. They haven't even selected the states on this. I know that the states just got this proposal sent out to them just a few weeks ago. So we'll have to see what states apply and who actually runs and goes for those programs. How many have heard of the National Agenda for Motorcycle Safety? NAMS? Yeah. Come on. Everybody, most of you guys in here. I know several. I know all the people that are on the small groups have. NAMS was actually put out several years ago, I think, 2006 or so. And what they're trying to do now is they're going back and trying to research and look at everything that's gone on since then and actually update this publication. It's just a good resource document for people that are wanting to go and to do motorcycle safety programs to look at kind of the history and what things are going on. So they're working on that. I thought this one was kind of good. MOM, Motorcycle Operator Manual. Once again, they're trying to work with AAMVA and everyone to kind of develop some basic guidelines when you go take those driver's education tests and the motorcycle questions that you might get in that. So NHTSA is trying to kind of put out some guidance so that, you know, you get a little more consistency from state to state and the information and the testing is similar. So they'll probably end up coming out with some of those guidelines. Right now, they're trying to shoot for that on summer of 2014. Who in the back's got eyes good enough to actually read the charts up on the T? Can anybody read that? I'm sorry, I didn't have a clue when I came, you know, well, we were on these, and I should have used bigger fonts because some of y'all may be like me and getting older and visually challenged. State adoption of model national standards for riding training. Once again, NHTSA is looking on some standardization for the certification and accreditation process for entry-level motorcycle riding training curriculum. You know, right now the MSF is kind of the standard, but they're kind of looking to see if there's some things that can be done to improve that. How about the examination of the feasibility of alcohol interlocks for motorcycle? Yeah, they're already out there. I actually went to. I don't know if there's any installed in the state of Texas, and I don't guess anybody here wants to admit they've got one on their bike. But I actually did go and observe one being put on a motorcycle up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It was a very quick process. They probably had it on in about 15 minutes. I think the most important thing is we just don't want to be doing rolling retest, which is a requirement for the cars, you know. So I did hear, though, that there was in California, I think there may be a little more proactive on putting them on out there. And I did hear there was some guy that actually took another piece of plastic hose and stuck it on the hose to the system, actually ran it up through his jacket up to the side of his mouth. So whenever he had to do a rolling retest, he just had it right there by his mouth. No proof, but that's what I heard. But they are looking at that to see if they can actually, if that's feasible to put on motorcycles. This one I think is something I'm kind of interested to see. I think it affects a lot of people, especially those new riders coming in, and quite frankly, some of the friends I've got that's been riding for quite a long time. It's the effect of sight distance training on motorcycle skills. I think most of you guys that are riding and have some experience, you're going to know that getting your head up and looking through the curves, that makes a huge difference on how you perform going through them, right? And I think a lot of the novice riders, what do? They're just right out front of them during a turn, and they can get into turns and kind of get messed up fast because they don't see the big picture. So I'm kind of anxious to see what this study shows, and I think it's something that can really affect the motorcycle safety. Also looking at the Washington State Vehicle Impoundment Law for motorcycle endorsements. They've had that up there in Washington State for a little while, and they're looking at if they impound the motorcycles of those operators that are not properly licensed, how that affects the licensing process. With my knowledge of the industry, I have a funny feeling if motorcyclists know that if they get pulled over and they don't have a proper license, their bike's getting taken away, I have a funny feeling most of them are going to go get their endorsements because they don't like seeing their motorcycles hauled off on a flatbed or worse on a swinging sling somewhere. So, but they're evaluating that, and they should have that study out in fall of 2012. They're also looking at the state of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico passed a law down there that anyone riding a motorcycle has a .02 BAC. I know we've talked about that over several years in the group meetings around this place. Should motorcyclists have a lower BAC threshold than cars? Commercial vehicles currently are at .04. I think most people will tell you that it takes more balance, maybe a little bit more skill operator motorcycle safety. So should they be held to a higher standard when it comes to their intoxication level? I'll leave it up to the professionals to determine that. Evaluation of impaired riding crackdown. This is one of the evaluations, kind of the studies that we're talking about earlier, where they're going to the different states and looking at doing checkpoints in their own motorcycles to see if those do actually have a positive effect on motorcycle safety. This one, I guess, how many people are involved with training in the room? I have a class, I figured it was a large percentage. Well, what's the $1 million question? Does it really affect their safety? Who here says yeah? I bet all the trainers raise their hand. Yeah, okay. Here's the thing that they're going to try to get to is how does the effect of entry-level motorcycle rider training on motorcycle crashes? That's something they're going to try to evaluate. They'll take people that's been through the class and evaluate them over a period of time to see what the statistics show. Now, this is probably one of the ones that'd be the most interested. I haven't volunteered to be wired up and geared up and all for this program, but they're going to take 160 motorcyclists over a fairly long period of time, and they're going to wire up the bikes and the drivers to see exactly what their riding habits are. So they'll be recording everything from what their eyes are looking at as they're riding, speed, the whole thing, and just evaluate that, just see how these 160 people are riding in the environment they're in. And that's going to be a very interesting study. I'm kind of curious to see what that comes up with. But there's a couple of publications that's recently come out, the National Standards for Entry-Level Motorcycle Rider Education. I put the publications on here. I know you don't have time to write down the whole website, but most of this stuff, if you'll just Google it, I tell you what, I work for NHTSA, and half the time when I try to find stuff on our own website, I have a tough time finding it. So I use Google more than I do our website, and usually it'll find it on our website just from the Google searches. Next, another study that's out is the feasibility study of instrumentation to collect behavioral data to identify on-road rider behaviors. See, this study just fed into the one I just talked about. They had actually done just a small study to see could they actually wire somebody up and record all that stuff. And this is that study, which is now feeding into the one that's going to have the 160 riders evaluated. And last but not least is there's a current study out that's improving crash avoidance and enhancing motorcyclists, and I always have trouble with this word. Y'all say it for me. Conspicuity. Okay, it always helps when I heard it said one time. But these are, I wrote down here the DOT publication numbers. Those are the quickest way to find the stuff, and that's short and fast. So if you want to jot those down for those 4 different ones, and they deal with the daytime running lights, the effects of auxiliary forward lighting. So if you put those 2 big lights on the side of your headlight, conspicuity. See, I always have trouble with it. And the effect of fleet 2 vehicle fatal crashes in Canada, and effective daytime running lights on left turning drivers gap acceptance. So those are 4 publications out. If you want to know anything about those, y'all can just plug in those DOT publication numbers and find them. All right, I appreciate the opportunity to come down and kind of share this stuff with you. Like I said, I can't share a lot more than what I did today, but